Away. We're joined here by our military analyst, retired Lieutenant Colonel Rick Francona. We also have former UN and State Department official David Tafuri with us. And David, you know, Israel did stop shooting. They accepted the Egyptian proposal for a ceasefire. Hamas did not. So did they miss an opportunity to solve this crisis, and why did they let it pass up?
Well, they certainly did miss an opportunity, but there's a bit of opportunism by Hamas. They want to accomplish certain goals. They want to demonstrate to the people that they are retaliating against Israel, that they're making an impact, and they want to demonstrate that to the world, and they want to get more support from the terrorist organizations around the world that support them. So they must have deemed that a ceasefire was not in their interest right now, even though they're suffering heavy losses because of the bombings by Israel.
Colonel, the ceasefire brokered by Egypt, Secretary of State John Kerry supported it. Is this thing dead in the water?
Well, it didn't address Hamas's requirements. I think it was dead in the water before it even got to Hamas's desk. They rejected it out of hand because it didn't address their conditions, which were ridiculous. No one was going to make those conditions happen. So I think David's exactly right. You know, Hamas is playing a really dangerous game here because although it gives them credibility in the eyes of other opposition groups around the world, other terrorist groups around the world, they're losing the faith with their own people. This is the military wing of Hamas, and they're putting their own people in danger. I think they're going to have an internal problem after this.
It's interesting, David, the situation that Egypt put Hamas in, because over the last few days there was a lot of talk about the civilian casualties in Gaza. Egypt, right next door to Hamas, and over the last several decades occasionally allied with Hamas, recently not so much, said here's a way out, but they didn't take it. Did they put Hamas in a bind here?
Well, I think they put pressure on Hamas, as they should have. This was a great opportunity for the Egyptian government to step up and show that they can be a peace broker and have an impact on the Middle East. There's a lot of turmoil in the Middle East right now. This comes at a very difficult time. It's the dead of summer, very hot. It's the middle of Ramadan. Everyone's very anxious. It would have been nice if Egypt could have helped resolve this, but it didn't happen. It's going to take more than the Egyptian government.
Well, and what hangs in the balance are the fact that there are people that are caught in the crossfire, people that are not necessarily being well represented by Hamas, one would ask. When you look at the casualties, nearly 200 people we're talking about in terms of the Palestinian loss now. What happens there? Because they're trapped. Those people have nowhere to go. They can't necessarily evacuate.
Well, there's nowhere to go. The population density in Gaza is astounding. No, so if the Israelis do anything, by the very nature of their operation, they're going to be civilian casualties. There is no escaping it. And the Israelis try to ameliorate as much as they can, but there's just no way to get around it. And look at the numbers. 200 on the Palestinian side and 0 on the Israeli side, because the Israelis provide shelters, warning, the Iron Dome system. And in Gaza, they don't have access to that kind of technology. So who are the Palestinians going to blame? So far, they blame the Israelis. But if Hamas keeps this up, they may find themselves in a really bad situation with their own population.
David, knowing what you know about the Israelis now and the government of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, how far do you think they will go now? How much will they seize this opportunity as a mandate, and he has used that word, to expand their operations? Are we talking ground troops within the next 24 hours?
Well, there's a bit of opportunism by Israel for certain as well. They have certain military objectives. They want to satisfy those objectives. They've got a lot of targets in Gaza. They're beginning to hit them. They probably have a lot more they want to hit. So they probably at this point want some more time to really run down the effectiveness of Hamas and the militants there and hit their missile striking capability, rocket making capability, in order to make it harder for them to attack Israel in the future. So it's going to take several more days before Israel feels like it's really made the impact that it wants to make. Perhaps some further military raids with troops on the ground. I don't expect there'll be any type of large-scale boots on the ground by Israel, though.
David Tafuri, Colonel Rick Francona, thanks so much for being with us. Appreciate it.
Let's take a look at some other stories that we're following at this hour. Morning rush hour in Moscow becomes a nightmare scene of death and injury. 3 subway cars derail in a tunnel. State-run media is saying that 20 people are dead. More than 100 others are injured. We're told that about half of them are in critical condition. City officials say this was not a terror attack, but they are still investigating what caused this derailment.
Some shoppers near Houston took quick action when they saw 2 kids crying, locked in a hot Jeep, and the whole thing caught on cell phone video. They smashed the windows.